Welcome to the first double coverage roundtable. This week we're discussing the games that have been forfeited over recent weeks and its reflection on the league and the sport as a whole. Joining me are Nathan Sharrocks, our northern correspondent, Thomas Piachaud, who's the presenter of the Piachaud Files, and Richard Penwright, who's our double coverage co-founder and also a defensive back for the Birmingham Bulls, who had to forfeit their game this weekend. Richard, we'll start with you. As a Bulls player, you must be disappointed with what's happened.
Yeah, very disappointed with what's happened. Hoping to play against Phoenix, our local rivals, but unfortunately it's not to be. We'll have to wait till later on in the season.
Thomas, we'll bring you in at this point. You've got some pretty strong views on the forfeitures and how they reflect on the league as a whole and the restructure.
It's been quite interesting this year, actually, because there's been a kind of mixed message sent out by the league. Everyone knows and has talked to death about the Doncaster versus East Kilbride fixture at the beginning of the season, which Doncaster were trying to find an alternative date for, but East Kilbride couldn't find one to accommodate them. And I think the problem was that Doncaster couldn't have a registered level 1 coach with them at the time due to the BAFANL finals. But in the end, it was awarded a 1-0 victory to the East Kilbride Pirates. And it's quite interesting as to whether this forfeit, as it were, affects the standings of the Doncaster Mustangs in terms of the playoffs, because as we know, they beat Tamworth last week, and whether will they go on to be the second seed in the Premiership North and thereby be eligible for the playoffs, but then through this forfeit be ineligible for the playoffs. And a very interesting side story to this is the Oxford Saints versus the Cornish Sharrocks fixture, which was supposed to happen last weekend, but the Cornish Sharrocks couldn't field a team, and the league decided it was a 0-0 draw. So now with this Bulls game versus the Tamworth Phoenix, it's been decided as a 1-0 victory to the Phoenix. But why is this when it was a 0-0 draw last week?
Yeah, I mean, we must say at this point that we don't know the exact circumstances behind all of the forfeits. And maybe, Rich, you could fill us in a little bit on what the situation is with Birmingham. Is it just a small squad with a lot of injuries, or guys on holiday? What's the situation for you guys?
It's a variety of things, to be honest. Last week we had a small team went to Yorkshire and a couple of guys got hurt. But our biggest problem is we've got like 5 players who are 7-day Adventists, and their Sabbath is Saturday, so they can't play at all. So that really cuts the numbers on Saturdays. And now, June time, the players who've got kids are on holiday, and to go with the injuries and the 7-day Adventists, we're just really, really low on numbers. With the Saturday games, everyone's got to have 2, which is fair enough, because 2 Saturday games is pretty good because you heal up on a Sunday. But we've got 5, and this would have been our 3rd. So some teams just can't make up the whole games on Saturdays. It's just one of those issues. But it's good for the league, but it's bad because of commitments.
Correct me if I'm wrong. I believe the rule used to be that if a team was to forfeit a game, they'd be automatically relegated. Now, obviously, there's been a lot of talk about promotion and relegation and the fact that it's been frozen for this year to do with the restructure. I mean, obviously, Rich, you're not going to agree that your team should be relegated for forfeiting a game, but I don't know what the other guys think about this particular rule and whether it's necessary. Then we also look at the situation with Ipswich, who have been, unfortunately for them, massively outclassed every week and probably through no fault of their own. So what are our views on this, the promotion and relegation?
I think it's an interesting point to raise, because I think for such a massive restructure to have occurred, there definitely needs to be some stability in terms of the teams that are there. There's no doubt that teams coming up from Division 1 straight into Premiership level will struggle, and it's a whole new level of football. There's bigger, faster, stronger, harder-hitting players in that division who are better coached at the end of the day. But there has to be something to be said as to whether losing games 40, 50, 60, 70-0 is ever going to help you improve as a team. I mean, can the Cardinals really say that they felt they've got better playing against the Warriors and the Blitz this past year? Or do they feel that perhaps they've picked up quite a few injuries and they've lost a lot of the morale in the squad? A squad who's probably used to winning, or at least winning sometimes in Division 1, and now going into the Premiership and no kind of sight of a win down the road. I think they'll be glad to have got the 2 Blitz games out of the way and one of the Warriors games out of the way. I think they can be more reasonably competitive against the Olympians and the Aztecs. I think that the league need to make a stance on it and say exactly what's going on in terms of how we stand at the moment. But if we look at the Premiership North, it's a division that perhaps is a bit more competitive than you might have thought originally, but the only team in the division who have any standings against the bigger Premiership teams down in the south is Tamworth, and I think that they've lost out to Doncaster this year. So maybe there is proof in the division that there's actually strength up there and that they can compete with the Premiership South teams. But the lack of cross-conference games doesn't allow us to see this. So it's very interesting. I don't think the Bulls should be demoted or anything from just being able to not fulfil a fixture. As Rich said, Saturday games can have a massive effect on your squad, and if you're missing 5 key players in a position, it's always going to affect the squad.
Well, I mean, is the solution to have just one Premier League, a smaller Premier Division, an elite league of maybe just 6 teams? But again, that the problem in there is that East Kilbride would probably be included in that, and perhaps their nearest trip, if you look at one of the top 6 teams in the country, their nearest away travel would be to somewhere like Tamworth, for example. So the restructure, it has its faults, but I mean, Nathan will, I'm sure, agree with me that I think the standout division has been the First Division, both North and South. It's been very, very, very competitive. Not necessarily strong, as we've discussed earlier, but definitely competitive. I'm not sure what Nathan's thoughts are on that.
Definitely. I mean, Division 1 North, to me, has stood out the most. But even going down into Division 2, the North, the Central, in the Central, you've got like Sheffield, Manchester, Crewe, Chester, all going for it. I mean, Crewe, DC, both associate teams, both put in that division, both competing, both won a game each this year. You're looking at Division 2 West, yeah, maybe Oxford are dominating that a little bit, but they've got strong competition. I mean, I'm not totally against the restructure. In fact, I'm quite a big fan of it. It's quite competitive. It's in its transition year as well. You've got to think it's the first year that it's been implemented. It's going to take some time to iron the creases out. It has got its good points, it has got its bad points, but no matter which way the league was to restructure it this year, it was always going to have good and bad points. I don't see many ways in which they could have made it better, but they will learn from mistakes, no doubt, and edit it if they need to.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, guys, for having this chat, and we'd love to hear what you, the listeners, think about our views on the restructure and on forfeiture of games. Make sure you check us out on Facebook and also comment on the article. So thank you very much to Nathan, to Thomas and to Richard, and we'll see you again next time.